them.
Hi, everyone. Oh, this is Hope Dementia Support. And what we have today is a panel of home care and placement agencies. And unfortunately, two of our folks are ill. So instead of having a group of 6, we have a group of 4, which gives them more time to talk to you. And I'm going to make them do their own introductions and talk a little bit about their company. And then we are open for questions. So we'll start with Sarah.
My name is Sarah Sheeps, and I'm the owner and operator of Senior Living Locator, a local placement agency here in Clark County. And I've been doing placement for 6 years now, and just the Clark County area.
My name's Terry Brandley, and I'm here representing Elfin, which will soon be PNW Aging Specialty Services. So we're transitioning as we speak. So we're focused on healthcare healthcare POA, care management services, and caregiving. So I'm here representing home care. I guess I'm the only one today.
Only one. And my name is John Warner. I'm with Oasis Senior Advisors. Been in senior living for about 6 years, doing placement for the past 3. But pretty much the same as Sarah said, and what my friend over here, Christina, is going to say. We're all placement agents. We're different from Elfin. But yeah, we like to help people find placement when it becomes too hard to have people in the home. But we also work with Elfin and other in-home care agencies to help them age in place if that's what they need to do.
Well done, John.
Oh, thank you.
You're welcome. I'm Christina Hinksler. I'm with First Choice Advisory Services. I'm a housing and care advisor, which means I'm a matchmaker. So just like a real estate agent might help find somebody the best home, I'm helping families find the best spot for their loved one when it's not safe to be at home any longer. I will have families call me, and I refer to Elfin and to Home Instead, and also to CLT, and also to CDM, etc. There's a long list of in-home care agencies, and we are promoters of that. If it's safe to be at home, do that. And then remember us, because we're here to help you when it no longer is the best option for your loved one. We all get along and we all support each other. So that's great to be here tonight to talk about what we do.
So this is an opportunity to open up to any questions that anyone might have, or any questions that you on the panel have had come to you. So we don't want to put anybody on the spot, and our folks that are on Zoom, if you just put it in the chat if you have any question. So the first thing that I want to know is, what is the difference between a placement agency and a home care agency?
Well, I mean, I think any of us could answer that. In-home care obviously is for people that don't need 24-hour care, or someone that is not exit seeking, like with dementia, or people that are able to age in place. Sometimes it becomes like independent living is what someone wants, and they just don't know where to start. So they would contact one of us and we could help them find that. But our goal for us, and I'm sure for everyone else here that's a placement agent, is to place once. Like find somewhere where they can age with the same place or the same company, so they're not up a creek later on, because that can happen sometimes. Because usually when someone contacts us, they're in crisis and they don't know where to turn to next, and it can be scary. So we help them find the right place. Whereas in-home care agencies, they would have someone come out to the home and take care of them in their home.
Do you want to add, Terry, about in-home care and what?
Sure. In-home care, what we do is provide a caregiver for how many hours we need. We actually have one 24/7 client, actually. We don't do it often, but so anyway, so caregiver, maybe a couple of hours. We have a 4-hour minimum. So come in, help with maybe dressing, bathing, that kind of thing, medication reminders, those kinds of things, so that the person can stay in their home. A lot of our calls are the kids of their parents. They're calling and they're saying, my dad is not doing well, or my mom. or both. So sometimes that happens too. They just need some support. They're okay at home for now, but then definitely we send people over if they're no longer safe. We refer to you all because we want to make sure everyone is safe in their home.
Yeah, what I found in my experience too is sometimes, especially if someone's hesitant to receive any type of care or move. Because I think the majority of people do want to stay in their own home for as long as possible. And so often if I'll get usually the kids that call and they're saying, mom or dad, they need to go, to assisted living or somewhere. But then when you're talking to them and you're realizing, they just need someone to come in and check on them, or maybe it's just, bathing is an issue or meals, but they say mom and dad don't want to go. That's usually when I say, sometimes it's helpful to start with the in-home care and make that an option and kind of a compromise. And sometimes that works way longer than anybody expects, or at least then they can say, we tried this and that's not working. We need to go to the next step. So.
And something else I didn't mention is we do care management or case management. So we go to the doctor with people, we go to their appointments. The care management is just making sure that they're getting all the places they need to be, like the doctor, and then somebody's coordinating their care because they may not remember what the doctor said. So we tell the kids or the guardian or whoever, that we are on their case and working with them. So we work with a lot of guardians, and we do a lot of healthcare POA, power of attorney, for people that may not have a family member to do that for them. And I believe we're the only one that do it in town. So anyway, so that's another service that we offer where we can help people get to the doctor. We can get medical records, we can do whatever they need,
Are you in the Clark County area or
Yes.
beyond Clark County?
Yeah, we do. We go up to Longview. So, yeah, we're office in Vancouver by the mall.
I have a question. Do you provide services for the caregivers to make it easier for them to manage the person's care in home? That's a situation I find myself in. My husband has dementia and things are just getting more complicated. Went to the emergency room, diagnosed with vertigo, but I'm wondering if it isn't something more than vertigo. And I don't have anybody to talk to other than his doctor and his neurologist. And I'm managing all the appointments, all his medications, and I'm not a professional. It's like I'm learning and I don't mind, but I could use some help, support.
Sure. Are you familiar with the Hope Dementia support groups?
We went to those for about a year, but we weren't at a stage where those were really helpful. So we're kind of moving into a stage where perhaps in a year or so, it'd be helpful to have somebody come to the house. He still dresses himself, he bathes, he's helpful around the house. So things are fine for now, but I just see that coming in the future, I'll need some help. And right now, it's like, I just have to do a lot of research myself.
Well, Hope Dementia support is great for resources.
Okay.
I've run a group in Camas with another lady.
My counterpart.
Yeah, his counterpart. And we try to give resources. We had an attorney come a little while ago to give some resources. People were asking about that, and other resources we talk about, and services, and depending on who comes to the meeting, what is their interest, what are their needs. So
I could use some medical assistance. Now he's going to see a gerontologist up at Salmon Creek in October. So how do we get plugged into the system? He has Medicare Advantage and TRICARE as his backup. So we got good medical. So I'm just learning the system.
right. But yeah, we definitely could work with you.
Well, in your participation now that you're a little further down in your journey,
Yeah.
might be more meaningful in a local way. But on a national level, the Alzheimer's Association has a 24-hour hotline, but you could call at 2 a.m. and say, I've tried to put him to bed 10 times and he's still up. And you need somebody to talk to right then. They're master level clinicians.
They are.
So
Okay.
you go to alz.org and lots of resources available there. But the Hope Dementia Group, there's lots of different options that you could get plugged into locally, so we can make sure that you have that information that you need.
There's no charge.
Yeah,
Alzheimer's
it's free,
Association for us,
yeah,
no charge.
Call any of us and we would love to talk to you about ideas and, you know, we have lots of stories that we are collecting, you know, and so
Yeah.
yours is very similar to somebody else's, and then we might say, oh, you know, what about this, or have you thought of that, or trying to connect you to other local resources. And good job. Yeah.
And that being said, everything's different too.
Mhm.
Like Lynn said, if there's anything you guys want to share, let us know. Every single situation is different. And that's the sad part of the disease of dementia is we could line up 100 people that all have the same exact diagnosis of, let's say, Lewy body. And every single person would have different behaviors, different symptoms, and it's tough. But that's where we come in and try and figure out the right fit.
And caregivers all come from a different place too, just like
Mhm.
we've all come from a different place, have different experiences. So we want to honor that, or when I'm working with a family, I'm really listening hard. Tell me more of what's going on, and also what about you? And let's talk about your relationship with your husband and when you can be the wife again and not the caregiver, because it makes it complicated. And so we get asked frequently, well, when do I know when it's time? When do I do that? And it's a really personal decision. There could be a financial situation too, where you are in this situation and we need to just support you to stay in that, because that's what it is. But we talk about finances too, and John, you alluded it
That's
to
close.
it. That's pretty
You
good.
added a couple edited.
A little, it's very important that we are sharing information and educating families when they're calling about how does this process work? How much does it cost in these places? And then what about Medicaid spend down if I don't have gobs of money just sitting around and I don't have to worry about it, which usually is not the case for people, that we're doing our best job to make sure that people are making good choices, or we're offering options that meet up with their financial situations so that they don't have to move again. If you don't know what you don't know, and you move into a place that never takes Medicaid, and now you've got 3 months left, and oh my gosh, now we're in a crisis. But we're all adept at being able to help people sort through and figure out now what do you do when that happens. Also, though, I really appreciate it when people are planning ahead. So even if it's down the road and they're just calling to say, hey, Christina, I don't know what I don't know, and I can share, here's some things to think about, and be ready, and you just keep our number for when it is time, then you're already ahead of the game. So then a crisis is no longer that crisis, because you already have somebody lined up to help you figure it out. And that, I think that's really helpful to families.
Dementia is a journey, for sure. Like you said, you aren't where you were a year ago.
Yeah.
It's definitely a journey, so the needs change as you go through this journey.
So I have a question from our Zoom audience. Is there any long-term care insurance available for a home care situation?
Yes, there is. Most long-term care insurance covers home care. So we work with several long-term care insurance agencies. So it is available for home care.
And you're on the spot, Terry, because our other home care folks are ill. I hope there isn't something serious going on around town, because to have 2 people out of a panel of 6 who are sick is a little scary to me. But
We're the only ones at risk up here. We're
Yeah.
right next to each other.
but my question has to do with the fact that, for example, Elfin or B&W
Aging.
aging soon to be, does not accept Medicaid.
That's correct.
So can you speak a little bit to that?
Unfortunately, we don't accept Medicaid because we are for-profit business and a private. So we do accept long-term care insurance, private pay. And there are agencies, though, that we refer to that do accept Medicaid. So I know Seventh Generation's coming to mind.
CDM.
And CDM, yeah, for sure. So there are agencies out there that do meet that need.
I also have a question here that asks to name the agencies again with contact information and what if you wouldn't mind naming your agencies again, but I will send out the contact information when we're done.
Sure. You wanna start?
You
Kick
can
us off?
start us.
Senior Living Locator,
And what's your name?
and I'm Sarah Sheets. Yeah. Oh, I thought when you said
She's
she's
gonna
gonna,
send
yeah,
out-
yeah, she's
okay.
gonna send out contact info.
I'll send all that out.
And I'm Terry Bramley from Elfin Services, soon to be PNW Aging Services.
And I'm John Warner with Oasis Senior Advisors.
And Christina Hinksler with First Choice Advisory Services, and that's with the number 1 in the front. It's very smart of my company because that, technically,
You're not gonna be next to us.
alphabetically, number 1 on the top.
And of you four, you do not, yours, you do not, you can't use Medicaid.
Right.
Do the other three of you
I
work with it?
I work with Medicaid. I think most senior living advisors would also work with Medicaid. It's just, we look at it as like a pro bono thing, like we're not gonna get paid for it because we're free service to families. But for instance, if like Peace Health calls me and like I'm having trouble placing someone, I'll absolutely help them find placement.
And just for clarification, we're actually not allowed to get paid.
Correct.
For Medicaid placements. It's a federal Medicaid regulation. So, but we can do it. We can still be a Medicaid resource for free.
And I would say, at least for me, the bulk of my clients end up going to Medicaid eventually. Whether that's in a year or 2 years, or sometimes a month. It's just a matter of knowing where to place them. And that's a tough place for families to be in because they have no clue. Like they might find like this home they love and then they're leaving it in like a month or two.
If someone knows they're going to eventually be on Medicaid, but they are not on it yet, we can absolutely provide complete placement for them in those cases. And we will help you have that, we'll have that conversation with you about what the financial picture looks like, help you figure out how long you have. Because when you hear things like these homes only take a 2-year private pay, most of the time till you've done this, you don't know what that means.
That's right.
And so
When you're gonna
Like
hear spend
Christina
down
said.
so many times too, because like Medicaid will say, you have to spend down your finances, and then you'll hear from the homes, we require X amount of time spend down. So it gets real confusing real fast.
What about Medicare Advantage? Do they pay for these home services? When people come into the home, is it billable?
Some policies do, but not all. So it's something we have to do on an individual basis. is look
Oh,
at.
so when we renew our Medicare every year, we should look into that then.
So yeah, I know we cover long-term care insurance, the Medicare Advantage programs. I have to look into that some more, but my understanding is we do, as long as they have a long-term care insurance.
So
side
it's
of
not
it.
like a nursing, need for nursing, in-home nursing that would be covered by Medicare.
I think there's some, because so, and I know that every year you usually have a topic on this specifically, but there is a difference between in-home care, like what Elfin does, and then home health and in-home hospice, which all can be done in a person's home, but they are licensed differently. And so health insurance or like Medicare will cover things like home health and in-home hospice, because those are considered skilled level, but they won't typically cover in-home care, but
And-
long-term care insurance.
Right,
will.
and the difference as you're talking about it, and I just was having this conversation with the family, just providing some education around. So if your person breaks their hip and they go to the hospital and then go to skilled nursing, when they're ready to go home, they will use their Medicare plan to have home health. Follow them for a very short period of time, a couple times a week, it's PT, it's OT. But in-home care, that is longer term and that is private pay and it is not Medicare. So if you think about it, Medicare is care, like medical care versus Medicaid, when we're talking about that, that's financial. And over and over and over every call,
Yeah.
because it's confusing.
I mean, nice
It's
if we
not-
name them different
Yeah,
things, you
yeah,
know.
it's pretty
Even working in the industry. it gets
Yeah.
confusing.
Yeah, I
So,
definitely have accidentally said Medicaid when I meant Medicare several
I
times.
know.
Yeah, it's unfortunate, the names are so close.
It could have been like
And I
Medi
think
housing versus Medicare, like.
And I do care, I think of it the way Christina does in Medicaid with aid, so it's aid, assistance. Aid.
Yeah, financial.
This is for you, when you said that you don't accept Medicaid, you also not accept Medicare.
Right, right. Medicare is a whole different ball of wax, just like we were talking about. Yeah, so Medicare would depend on what they needed, so. But as far as home care, we don't, unfortunately.
What tools do you use for assessing someone to fit into where you're gonna find? What do you require for a family to bring to you?
You want to know in-home care too, or just like,
No.
okay. So I think we're all probably pretty similar, just in the
Mhm.
fact that we've worked together on cases, so we know, but we have pretty lengthy intake questionnaires where we're needing to know, everything from health history, current health needs. The number one question we're gonna ask is, what's going on right now that's prompting you to look right now? And then the financial piece is huge, because we don't want to take you to somewhere that you're going to only be able to afford to live in, for a year, and walking you through that. What that looks like for you. But also what we're doing is we're anticipating what we know is coming, especially with things like dementia. Obviously, we don't know how, your loved one's dementia is specifically going to progress, but doing this long enough, we have an idea of what you could be facing. So having the conversation, and most people do want to just move one time, but I've had times where families say, I want them to thrive where they're at right now. And I'm okay with if 3 or 4 years down the road, they're not as ambulatory and they're not going to participate in activities. And then we might look at a smaller setting. But right now I want a lot. So having that conversation too, what are you wanting now and what do you want in the future? And then helping you figure out where to go from there.
Yeah, and normalizing it's okay to have a stair-step approach. You know, it's, your mom is independent and she's not gonna go. But you think she could be benefiting from some socialization, right? Like, this is a story we've all heard. Guess what? You are not gonna be able to make your mom do that. And so we talk about, what are some things that might happen that would facilitate that move? Unfortunately, a fall or some kind of an event. But also, if you're doing your research now to kind of understand what's available, you're ahead of the game. So if something were to happen that way, now you're going to circle back to us and we're going to be able to pick up where we left off. I think we all do probably a really great job of listening and wanting to know what's, like Sarah saying, what's prompting you now, what's been going on, and really trying to support you to get into the right lane. So I don't require you to show me your financial records, but I am asking you to be honest with me so I can advocate for you. I'm going to lead with that. I'm going to say, well, we're not going to be able to look at these properties because they will never take Medicaid. And I'm not comfortable moving in that direction unless you tell me, you know what, we're good for 8 years. Let's do it a couple of years here. And, so we're having that conversation that you're fully informed about what's happening and that I am too, so that nobody is surprised. We also help with adult family homes, and that's a different lane. And so if somebody needs adult family home, then in addition to our own assessment that we're doing and trying to understand what's going on for you and your loved one and your family, we are required by the state of Washington to coordinate a third-party nurse evaluation. There's a whole list of nurses that are available, and depending on which one can help us in the timeline that we need, they cost different amounts. So we are connecting that person to be into the storyline. They do a really thorough assessment, and that's what I take that, we all do, and lead with that to talk with adult family homes. So we're efficient about that. Adult family home A, are you able to, do you think that you would be a good match for this person? And then they say yes, then okay, we've got them ready to roll, and then we reach out to the family. Let's do it this way too, right? And then say, okay, I've got these three homes that are interested. Let's go take a look together. Let's go check it out. And then we're with you as we're going through that process, helping answer questions because it's overwhelming and you don't know what to do. And so we're grateful to be able to support people through that process. Again, financially, I'm telling the provider, this is a family that has at least 2 years worth of private pay, depending on what that amount is, or this family has 3 months of private pay, depending on what that amount is. So it could be 2 months, if your price is high. But I'm leading with that because I do not want there to be any surprises. So if you say yes, that you're interested in this family and we show up, there's no surprise that this was a 3-month plan and you said you're interested in it, and then, continuing to negotiate that around, and you also agree that once this person is ready, you're gonna accept that. So in your contract that you're having this person sign, you're gonna make sure that you initial that. Like, so we are advocating for families at that level.
And there's continual advocacy too.
Yeah. for
Because like
sure.
once someone moves in, we're not done.
No.
Because if something comes up 6 months, a year, 2 years,
Mhm.
we're here as a resource. I just had one that I thought would be a good fit, move in somewhere, and it's totally different than what was reported by the home, which is sad. But I'm not gonna get into that, but I'm still here to like help them find a replacement. But it's, again, like I said, we want it to be quick and easy and one time, and so it's easy on the family, because the more you look at things and the more you talk about them, the more confused it can get, especially when it's a new thing, like finding senior placement. It's usually something people don't do more than once in their life.
And I think it's probably rare when there has to be a replacement.
Oh, for
that's
sure.
done,
This
obviously.
is the first one I've had in my 3 years doing
Yeah,
this.
so, but there are times when we were talking about that stair step approach. I have an example of a gentleman that it was like, we did the adult family home assessment. It looked good. Okay, we went and visited. This was the place. Fantastic. And then within a few months, the family reached back out and said, Christina, we have an issue. What's going on? Well, dad's not happy about the provider. Well, in a small family home, you've got 2 people to pick from that are your providers. And so anyway, for whatever reason, something changed for them in his dementia. And he no longer could get along with the primary provider. Well, we have a problem. He's not going to get the care he needs because he's refusing it.
Mhm.
So we had to recalculate our route and move to a bigger community where there were additional people that could tap in and out to provide support to him. That isn't always the case, but man, oh man, that was like, oh no. But what it did was give me education around, this is something that could happen, and to prepare your family, like, we're going to do the best we can right here, but things change. So I will be forever part of your fast pass plan. Call me if you need something, or something goes kind of like you have questions about something, or other people that need help because you're in this journey, and other people, you recognize they need help, that you would tell them that there are people like us out here to help, to do the right thing. We're in it after hours to be here. We're doing it, because we believe in what we're doing.
What's
not-
after hours?
It's after hours,
Oh,
not just about the dollar, right? We're here because we believe in what we're doing to help people.
So I have a question. My parents live independently. My mom is the caregiver for my dad, who is 5 years into his Lewy body dementia journey. She can no longer leave him alone. She needs a break as she's exhausted. What organization could provide a caregiver for 4 hours at a time, maybe 1 or 2 days a week?
That's something we do all the time.
Yeah.
We provide respite care so that the family member can go out, go run errands, just get out and away from the situation. We do however many shifts a week that is needed. So we provide caregivers to do exactly that.
And what is the charge for that?
We're transitioning over. So the charge for that is $37 an hour, but it's a different charge if there's more needs, if they have diabetes, for example, and need insulin shots, or we also provide transportation to appointments. So if somebody just needs to go to an appointment, we can help with that as well. So we provide a wide array of services, and then we do the healthcare power of attorney and some other services. But for what it sounds like in that situation, it would be a caregiver basic care at $37 an hour. I'm laughing because we're transitioning over companies, and I had to pull it out of my brain.
And for comparison, what I have on my charts right now for in-home care is most of them are running between $36 and $40 an hour right now in this area. So you can kind of expect that range.
There's also options for longer term respite stays, up to 30 days. The state allows for somebody to move into a community like memory care or assisted living. So just depending on what's happening in life and COVID and what's available, some might be as little as 3 days for a respite stay. So maybe you need to get away for the weekend, or I had a gal that wanted to go on a quilting trip and she needed a week. So, we went around and we toured all the places so she could identify where her place would be a safe place for her to be able to take her husband so that she could have some time to do life that she needed to do, to take care of herself. So that is also an option. And then that financially, of course, that costs a little bit more money. I'd That's usually a daily rate. $200 a day, somewhere in there.
But then sometimes what happens is, once you discover your newfound freedom of not having to take care of the person, it's like, you know what? This is good if you find the right community. When I was in a community, I found all the time when someone came in on respite, like 9 times out of 10, they would convert to permanent. Because all of a sudden, like you get to live your life.
And especially if the person thrives. All of a sudden.
Oh, yeah.
My favorite is when people say, yeah, my spouse isn't very social. I don't think they're gonna do any of the activities. And then whenever they come to visit, they're like, I don't know where mom is. I don't
Where's
know
mom?
where
Oh,
dad
she's
is.
playing bingo.
They're playing bingo. They're doing this, they're doing that. So.
And that's actually why I'm having to replace someone, because they moved into a memory care and now they're cognitively not appropriate anymore for memory care.
Yeah.
So it's like, it's a good feeling. It doesn't happen very often, but it can happen once they get the care they need. And typically it's a medication imbalance. So like, that's why they have their medication all of a sudden controlled by someone else and they're good to go.
It's consistent.
Yeah.
Yeah, so respite can be a good way to dip your toe in to see
Mhm.
if that works well for you or your loved one.
How many places do respite care?
Right now, I think that would vary, that question would vary based on staffing. 'Cause
Yep.
we used to have a lot more, but everybody is struggling with staffing, whether it's a in-home care or a community. So that would be just us getting on the phone and saying,
Saying, what's the today's?
Who has-
We
yeah.
do that, like, okay,
Call
what
one of
nurses
us
are
and then we'll
available?
take care of the rest.
Who's got openings? Where are we at? We're always checking.
It seems like there's just a whole lot of neighborhood adult homes.
There is.
Do they continue to keep building and more and more coming? Yeah. Is there,
I think we had
Is there
some
any-
that dropped out during COVID and then we
Yeah.
see more coming on.
because
Yeah.
we used to be at about just slightly over 400 in Clark County. And I think the last number I saw is down to like 360, because we did see a lot. And we saw a lot of providers, retire and various things too. So I don't think we're seeing as much building of new ones as we're seeing just people selling,
Transferring.
And sometimes that's not necessarily a brand new provider. We have a lot of times where it's like the resident manager is now purchasing the home and they're gonna own it.
Or someone that owns a home down the block, they're like, well,
Right.
this makes sense for me to buy.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah.
And I've been in senior care here locally long enough now. I'm seeing second generations, owning and operating homes, which is a really neat thing to see too.
So can you address the different types of care that's available?
You each want to take one?
From a placement standpoint?
Perspective. Sure. Yeah, I mean, if you start at the bottom, you guys let me know if I'm missing
go for it.
anybody, but I mean, I would say there's in-home care. So, there's the services that'll come into your home. And then you have independent living communities where people are completely independent. It's pretty much a 55 and over, some of them are 60 and over community, almost like a senior apartment, but they don't have caregiving staff on site. We do have one that does, and then you would have assisted living, and the level that you would need would vary. So it could be anything from just medication reminders, all the way up to complete help with all your ADLs. And then we have memory care. So if someone, typically memory care would be if there are significant behaviors or a lot of dementia, or someone does what we call exit seeking. So if they were to take off outside and they're not going to know how to get back or not be willing to come back, then they definitely need a memory care community.
Yeah.
And a lot of times memory care too, even more than like behaviors and stuff, it's just if they need the activities to be very dementia focused.
Yeah,
then
they're busy
memory
people
cares.
at home.
Oh,
and
yeah.
you need to- You're following around a lot. You've got that issue at your house. Then a bigger community is gonna be a better fit likely
Yeah.
than a smaller adult family home that's licensed typically up for 6 people. There's not a lot of room to roam.
Yeah. And an adult family home kind of is like a catch-all from assisted through memory care. As long as they're not exit seeking, like a lot of times with people with dementia, they just want a similar environment. So a lot of times I'll recommend an adult family home over assisted living because it's a home. It's a nice, comfortable environment. It's not strange. But if that person, like you were saying, Christina, was like very great, like active and like wanting to like do things, like they need a memory care environment because they need people that can recognize that they need activity.
And then when you get into talking about adult family homes, I mean, they vary all across
Oh,
the
yeah.
board of what they offer. You know, there's some that are just really quiet. You know, maybe it's all just, you know, some ladies and they do just want to sit in their recliner and watch, you know, soap operas all day, and that's
Hallmark
just
Channel.
how that goes, you know. And then we have some that do more activities. We have ones owned by, you know, nurses and doctors. We have some where it's, you know, with somebody was a caregiver and then they wanted to own their own business. So they vary a lot. One of the questions when we're talking to you in the initial phone call is, does your person need assistance at nighttime? Because that's a huge thing with adult family homes. The majority of them, the staff sleep at night and get up if there's an emergency. We have fewer and fewer that have
Yeah.
awake night staffing. So if that's a need, you know, we would be looking at whether that setting would be appropriate or not. So,
And then there's some adult family homes too that offer activities that they hire to come in and do things.
or
Like-
their hairstylist,
Yeah.
some are bringing in the hair salon. They are definitely, I think over the years, doing better about trying to bring in things as much as we can to. But, and some benefits that you're gonna get in an adult family home that you're not gonna get in the bigger communities, you're gonna more likely have, you know, fresh, nice home cooked meals. You know, they're cooking for 6 people and not, you know,
Right.
60 to 80 to 100 people. So if that's something that's really, you know, important.
And also getting to know like the care staff, because there's usually 1 or 2 caregivers and an owner. And you get to know them and also the other residents too. I think that's big, especially for the people that get placed there. It's easier to get to know a group of 4 people than it is to get to know a group of 80. For anybody. Like, it doesn't matter what, if you have dementia or not.
So I have to pick on Terry because it is our other home care agencies that were ill tonight.
Right.
So Terry, tell us about who the caregivers are. What are their qualifications? What are they trained to do?
Oh, great question. The caregivers that work for us, they have completed either a CNA program, a certified nursing assistant, or a home care aide. And they have to take all the mandatory, Washington has several classes, and I teach several of those. Dementia, mental health, nurse delegations, that they can give medication. There's several more. But anyway, they've completed all those courses and they're trained in, when they take those courses, they learn how to take care of ADLs or activities of daily living, like bathing, dressing, grooming, toileting, all those things that are so important. So they actually are credentialed in that area. So, and we do FBI background checks, the whole thing with caregivers. So, you know, if you get someone from an agency, then you know that someone has checked them rather than hiring someone, you know, privately. So that's the kind of things that we offer. They also, in our agency, I'm a nurse, so I have the nurse supervision and the assessment part as well. So, you know, that's another thing that we offer.
So is there a difference between a home health aide and a CNA?
It's interesting because CNA has a longer track to get their credential, but essentially they function the same. Home care aide was designed for home care, and the certified nursing assistant was more for assisted living in other areas. But CNAs can work in various settings. They can work in adult family homes. They can work for us in home. They can work assisted living or memory care. Home care aides generally are more in the home. So, but they can also work in assisted living in other areas as well.
So if you are not able to do private pay and you are working with an agency who accepts Medicaid, what are the charges? Are they the same? Are they different?
I don't know, since we don't do Medicaid, you know, what the charges would be for them. I know what our charges are, but I don't know what a Medicaid agency would charge.
Typically with Medicaid, it's paid by the state
So the
and they'll
state-
have a portion left over for their own personal needs.
Yeah, the state will come in and do their own in home care assessment, and they will determine how many hours
Mhm.
per week or month that you're approved for, and then they cover up to that many hours. So you shouldn't have to pay anything out of pocket unless you want care above what
Right.
you've been approved for.
Okay.
And there's something called individual providers. They become certified by the state that they can provide care, and that's usually like a family member or someone like that. They don't necessarily have to get that home care aid and the CNA and all that. But they get credentialed by the state to take care of people in the home. Like I said, it's usually family members.
That you would get paid through those hours
Yeah.
that they have decided that the
Right.
person's eligible for.
A good resource if anybody needs more information on in-home care, Medicaid in-home care is the Southwest Washington Area on Aging and
Mhm.
Disability. That's usually where I send people if they have questions about that.
What was that again? The Southwest?
The South, the Southwest Washington Area on Aging and Disability.
SWAT.
And I'm hoping that's still the name because they do
Yeah,
like
they
to
should
change
change
it every
it, yeah.
couple of years.
Yeah, they still.
We'll make sure you have it. before
Area
you go.
agency.
agency.
On Aging of
Southwest
Southwest Washington. Yeah,
It's different
Area
name?
on Agency,
I think it did
yes.
change
Wow.
like
Huh.
during COVID or something, but
It's now ad swap.
Ad swap.
Ad swap, okay.
Area.
Is it a
and maybe, I don't know,
double
Lynn, would
W
you,
or?
maybe when you send out like our contact information, would you put a link in there for that for them? Because it is a really good resource and their website has a lot of
Mhm.
resources on it.
To give you all an idea is that I do a support group, and I know that most of the rest of our facilitators will refer to the Area Agency on Aging and Disabilities on a weekly basis because their resources are so amazing. So, and then the other people that we refer to so frequently is CDM, which we are sitting in the CDM Adult Day Center here, but they also provide caregiving services, and they do accept Medicaid.
And to speak to CDM as well, like someone mentioned a while ago about, if someone needs a couple hours, this is a great place. It used to be referred to as adult daycare, but that doesn't sound very kind. So like bring them here and get them set up and they'll be able to interact with people that are cognitively close to where they're at.
What about veterans? Is that totally separate from what you do? I mean, you'd have to go through like the Veterans Association.
That's tricky. 'Cause I heard you mention TRICARE earlier, so I already knew. We work with veterans, but like there's some companies that work closer with veteran affairs than others, like as far as like assisted living facilities or memory cares. But it really depends.
The VA aid and attendance office
Yeah.
can help you if you call them. They're another really good resource. They can help you know whether you should apply or how to apply for any aid and attendance benefits. And there are, if you qualify, they have them for both in-home care and also for long-term care settings, so communities.
Yep.
And I think that the thing that I would add to that is that you have to be incredibly patient,
Yeah.
Oh,
because it's like any VA thing.
it's any government agency is not fast.
Any bureaucracy.
And a lot of them at the Clark County, some of them are volunteers, so just know that too when you call. Some are employees, but they also have volunteers that are helping people apply, so.
I recently discovered a website that I hadn't seen before that talks all about aid and attendance, and I will attach that because it kind of made it seem like a piece of cake.
We all laugh. I mean, maybe it is. I take it back. I take it back.
And oftentimes too, if you are looking at the Medicaid route, that is one of the things on the Medicaid application is if you qualify for any aid and attendance. And I believe you have to use those resources first before you would even qualify for Medicaid. So
Okay.
that would be a good thing to look into.
Okay, yeah, I'm thinking for somebody else I know.
Okay.
And then for aid and attendance also, they have to have served during wartime. But they didn't have to like see combat, just serving, like if they were working on ships during World War II, that counts. And then honorably discharged. Those are two of the main criteria that they have.
And any disabled veterans.
Correct,
too.
yes, that's it.
I'm a vet, so I had to speak up. Oh, thank you.
You're Navy nurse,
Navy
right?
nurse, yeah.
Scary. I didn't know.
So then when you said patient, I'm like, are you talking about 6 months?
Sometimes
Yeah, sometimes a year, I've seen it happen.
Really?
Yeah, and the thing that is really nice, and I know about it because a friend of mine went through the process for her brother. And it took a lot to get it done. It took a lot of patience, a lot of going back, but it's retro.
Yep.
And it's retro from the date that you applied originally.
Right. It's sometimes because of the length of time, the retro is nice, but if you're at a memory care paying, you know, $9,000 a month,
Yeah.
it can add up. And
It's
that's
retro at the time of application.
correct, but you're still
Yeah.
paying
Does it
out.
matter what state you're in?
No,
No.
it's
No,
federal.
it's federal.
Yeah, that's federal.
Yeah.
And I would recommend going to VFW or DAV, one of those organizations, and have them advocate for you.
Yep.
The
We
Veterans
have
Affordable.
one just down the street.
Yeah, there
Yep.
you go.
VFW is a big one.
They will advocate for you in this whole process, either getting disability if you need that, aid and attendance. It's a huge, they cut through red tape. So I used to work at the VA too, so we use them a lot. Because they will really advocate for people and fast track that much more so.
Yeah, it's my son's girlfriend that's advocating for her dad.
Oh,
Ah.
okay.
And they're in Tualatin, so I was thinking maybe have him come up here and we could kind of keep an eye on him, since we're retired. Anyway, I wondered if states made a difference. If she applied in Oregon, could it be placed
The
in?
only thing that's different is Medicaid.
Yeah, Medicaid does vary by state, and you have certain requirement. Each state has a different, you have to be a resident for a certain period of time before you can even apply.
Right.
Like Washington is 30 days.
And there is a
VA should be okay, right?
VA should be
Yeah, I
everywhere,
believe it's
yeah.
okay, and it's easy, it's transfers a lot easier than Medicaid.
I work in assisted living and we use Elder Life.
Okay.
So if you want to write that down, it's Elder Life. And they help seniors. You can just call them and talk to someone and they'll kind of be the middleman and they'll assess when that person was active duty and if it was an appropriate time, and they'll see if you even qualify right then and there, and they'll set you up with a VA specialist without having to wait.
Grace,
And
thank you
they
for
are
mentioning
here.
that. So there's a handful of these type of entities that they're attorneys that work there, and so they know what to what to cross. There's a fee involved. However, some of our assisted living communities may take that fee on.
For example, we do.
You do.
Yeah.
So if you're thinking about going to Grace's place and you're maybe VA, they'll pay that application fee. If you're eligible, then that happens faster. So I've had families that have gone through that process and maybe it took 3 months versus a year and a half.
Right.
And it didn't cost them anything because the community paid for that. So some of that is working with us to help
Yeah.
you guide you, through that.
There's also a company that's local that has someone at their home office that is strictly based on aid and attendance. So if you move in there, they would even go as far as to just act as if you're getting the prorated rate, as long as the person's there. And then even if it takes them 6 months to a year, you're still only paying the other portion as if aid and attendance has been paying. And then they'll just poof, and you're all good.
And what
I guess that
company-
wasn't a professional word, but
Yeah, that's very accommodating. That's great.
And what company is that, John?
we can talk about that offline.
Okay.
John.
I know them very well.
We'll tell you. Write to John Warner at Oasis.
It's Jay Warner. Yeah.
So would you speak a little bit to, you mentioned things like spin down. So talk a little bit about the complications of Medicaid.
Oh, man, there's so many complications. It's when you're talking Medicaid, like let's say the Medicaid spend down, we'll start with that. They require you to have X amount of income before they'll allow you to have Medicaid. And can't think of the exact number right now. Yeah, $2,000 a month, right, per individual?
$2,000 in the bank.
Yes,
$2,000 resource.
resources. So that's not a lot, and a lot of times families have a tough time realizing that's the case. And then there's a spend down when we're talking about the community where it's an amount of time where they require so much private pay before they'll say, now we'll accept Medicaid. So, and in Vancouver, it's anywhere from like an adult family home. Some of them will accept Medicaid right out the gate. Some will say 6 months, some will say a year. And then as high as, the highest I've seen, and you two can correct me, is 3 years of private pay.
There's one adult family home that's 5.
Oh my gosh.
There's some that don't ever take it.
And
There's
some
also,
that
yeah,
are-
there's
yeah,
also
so
straight
private
private
pay.
pay, yeah.
And I just want to like, just to kind of be, because I get families that'll call and they're really frustrated. And I think they feel like, why won't someone take Medicaid? You know,
Right.
my loved one is very easy and very kind and they'd be a great resident. And so the reason behind that is because the Medicaid reimbursement rates are so low. And we are seeing a trend, unfortunately, because staffing is such a problem and everything keeps going up, that fewer and fewer people are taking Medicaid. But I just like my families to understand, you know, that it's not because they just are like, I don't want to.
It's not like their mom is bad.
No, and so for some places like adult family homes, they maybe say, okay, I can have budget wise, I can have 2 Medicaid residents and I need to have 4 private pay. So it's kind of budgetary, you know, purposes for them too in operating their.
Does
business.
anybody ever take a low Medicaid plus a small private pay?
There's some rules around that. There's certain things, they have regulations and they do that on purpose so that it tries to even the playing field, so that if a family has money, but the individual doesn't, they're not like, well, take my mom and I'll give you, you know, this
Right.
money on the side. But like, if they have a room with a view, they can charge, you know, a little bit more. So there's a few things, but it is kind of tricky.
Right.
Yeah, it's usually if your loved one needs something a little bit more than the other residents because of their health need. So they need a private bathroom because they have certain things that it's not good for them to share with somebody. Then that would be an example where the family could pay extra to have that amenity versus just, you know, like everybody else. Yeah. Thanks for that. Good job, Chris. Doing good. You guys know things.
Here's a
Yeah, good
question.
panel.
Talking to this robot.
Yeah.
Clarification question about respite care. Would you clarify how it works? Did someone mention that there are places that offer short-term respite for just a few days?
It's based on the community. So respite is at least a period of 24 hours. There's some communities where they'll sell you like almost like a punch card system where you'll pay for 15 days. And let's say you need a weekend here, and you can book that already paid in advance, and then they'll take those 2 days off. And it just depends on the community. So, but typically it's 24 hours minimum. Some are higher.
I feel like, and maybe you have some that I don't. I feel like I'm seeing 2-week minimums and 30-day minimums right now with just the way staffing is. And it is a lot of work for the communities.
Yep.
And then don't have so many people in, they have to get doctor's orders. They have to get,
Yeah.
you know, and it's a lot of work for you too.
It's the same as if they moved in permanently, just
Yeah,
knowing
same
they're-
amount of work, but just, you know.
And I don't see a lot of options for adult family homes to take on a respite
No.
for that very reason, because they only have 6 openings. And so if they agree to take this person at a 3-week stay, and they lose out on some longer term people coming in. So it is a business. They have to be looking at the numbers to make that pencil out for them. But yeah.
Mhm.
Well, I know that a number of the memory cares in town offer respite, but is it true that they also require a payment in advance and a nursing assessment? And
Well, they have a nurse on deck
Right.
in the memory care. So their nurse would do the assessment. So that's not costing you out of pocket like it would to pay for an adult family home nurse assessment. And some, it really does depend, because during COVID, there was one community what used to do like, oh yeah, we do a couple days. Nope, 30-day minimum,
Right.
you know, like because of the staffing, because of the things that we were talking about, that just made that not possible for them. And every day is different. So I might think that this is the one that does the 3 days. And when I call, I'm like, oh, Christina, we had to, you know, now
We
we're
changed
doing a
our policy.
2-week minimum. So we're on top of those things so that we can be, you know, hot off the press when families call, that we can, you know, provide good information.
when people are on hospice care, and you know, they have that quarterly benefit of 5 days of respite, is that something that you guys would participate in finding that space, or does hospice do that?
We would help,
It would
absolutely.
help.
Yeah.
I mean, typically, I think hospice is really good about that, so.
Yeah, they
Most
just
likely
break
wouldn't
through to
need our
us.
help,
Yeah.
but
Right.
we can.
But we get phone calls for people that say my loved one's in the hospital and they're gonna discharge on hospice and can you help us?
Absolutely.
Absolutely. And not every adult family home is equipped or able to take on a hospice for those reasons I just was saying, like the short term, they might not want to take that on.
Right.
But there are plenty that specialize in that we know about, and that those would be our first, options that we would recommend or call.
Mhm.
And we have 2 great hospice care centers here in Clark County.
Yep.
We have the Community Home Health and Hospice Care Center out in Salmon Creek, and then we have Ray Hickey
Right.
down off,
Mhm.
that's not really
Mill
downtown,
Plain.
but it's, yeah, Mill
Close
Plain,
enough.
close to downtown, yeah.
Closer than we are right now.
Yeah, so.
If you have someone call in crisis mode and need placement, how long does it generally take
Oh, man,
to
it,
get someone placed?
the fastest I placed someone was within 18 hours, and that was rare. But that was someone in the hospital that they needed to discharge right away, and they didn't have any advocacy. It depends on what their needs are. Like, crisis can be defined by many different ways, and I would say minimum 48 hours would be great for us, because it gives us time to make sure we find the right place. This was a unicorn situation where I was like, I made one call to like one adult family home that I knew was great, and they like, oh, I just had an opening come open, and so I was like, let's tour, can you do it today? And so we toured that day with the family member, and it worked out. But 48 hours I would say is minimum.
Well, because adult family homes, we need to have that nurse assessment
Yep.
before they can legally move in. And so depending on, if it's Friday, classic,
Friday.
Friday, 4:30 PM, and the hospital is calling, and here you go. And we have some conversations about, there's some steps involved here, and we'll do what we can. But now it's Saturday and it's a holiday weekend, by the way, that kind of thing. With all the things.
And the social workers know
Right,
this.
they do.
They know it.
So nice try, and I'm here to help and.
Well, I have to confess that I have made those calls.
Yes, of course. And it's because people are doing their job, and we understand that, but also it makes it's a challenge.
Right, you want to go home at the end of the Friday, and we'll keep working.
And I would say the number one holdup for a move-in is doctor's orders.
Yeah.
And emergency room doctors or hospital doctors, they're only willing to do orders for any medication that they have prescribed while you're in the hospital. They're not gonna do whatever your PCP
Yep.
has. So then oftentimes it's waiting till you can get a hold of the PCP.
But I think that we all work with urgency. That's why we've been doing it as long as we have, and that we're here in front of you because we have shown that we're doing a good work here. And we do work with urgency to help people get in the right place. And we don't want to do a hurry up and, and then now we have a mess. So we want to take our time where we can and be mindful about what we're doing and what we're recommending, because we want to look, it's a match for all of us, me and you and your person and your family, and the provider, and making sure that it's a win for everybody. That's pretty good, huh? I came up with that myself.
And on that note, I always recommend if you are foreseeing needing a community of some sort in the future, call us up and have us take you to go tour what they look like now before you're in crisis. So you know what does an adult family home look like? If you've never been in one, you don't know. What does memory care look like? What does assisted living look like? And
Or
it
even
will-
if they were in an adult family home like 10 years ago.
yes,
It's
totally
very
different.
and they're all different.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
That would be neat to have a tour with a group, like someday, some evening.
Field trip.
yeah.
Field trip.
Well, that's one of the things that I love about, Hope Dementia, now that we're starting to be able to do all these in-person things again, is the fact that they have groups in these communities, so you do get to see that too. a
It
bit,
is really
but-
nice to be back into the communities. So kind of pursuant to that. So we have somebody in the home, and we might be able to have a couple of hours, a couple of times a week that we're getting home care. And we're watching the care provider, the care partner, declining in their own health and their own energy and their exhaustion and their depression. And what would you say to them? And Sarah, you just said a bit, is let's not wait till the last minute. But what are some of the warning signs that says, you know what? we may need to be placing this individual sooner rather than later. What are the things that people need to pay attention to?
I just had a daughter tell me, my friends, well-meaning, told me that they don't want to hang out with me anymore because I'm being kind of cranky. And she was like, that was good information because it's feedback, that I don't see it because I'm involved in the work of it, you know? So if your family is staying away because it's not any fun to be near you or your loved one anymore, that's a good sign.
I got a personal one. My own grandma, in my opinion, needs to be placed into an adult family home. I don't have any power of attorney. It's my dad and my aunt. And my aunt is her primary caregiver. And just last night, she came over to our house and was talking about how my grandma is crazy pants right now. I'm like, you can't talk about her like that. Like, I understand it's stressful, but she's like, oh, she called me in her room and told me to change the tape that she was watching, and it was channel 12, like on her TV. She's like, no, I recorded that in the backyard. And she said, no, you didn't. And like arguing, and like that, if you hear a primary caregiver arguing with the person that has dementia, that means they're beyond burnt out. And it even in my own personal notes, I have like a 3 initial thing of WFC for people that are waiting for crisis. And I hope to get people placed before that happens, or at least get the ball rolling. So that way, when it does happen, it's not a stressful thing for them. Like, they know what's going on. But yeah, so
I think what's hard for a lot of families is that you're looking at your person and you're trying to make sense of what's happening.
you want them to be well.
And
Yeah,
the things that are happening don't make sense. And you're hitting your head against the wall, trying to understand, I don't know why my person's doing this. Well, because your person's brain isn't working anymore the way it used to. And so you will forever like frustrate yourself by trying to understand it. So exactly as you were like, you have to ride the wave. So if somebody's,
To get
hey,
educated.
you need to gas the car up because I've got a long haul truck drive, whatever the story is.
Okay.
Absolutely,
that.
I'll get right on that. Like,
Exactly.
and you just drop the road because it's just too hard. And it's and pointing thing like the arguing piece. I see that in my own family, but also with family stories that I hear. Like, no, mom, it wasn't that. I have the police report to show what happened, and I'm watching this, and I'm like, that's not helpful to the older adult who's struggling, who says, well, there's different accounts.
Yeah.
Like you, and whose is right.
You can be right or happy.
Yeah.
That's it.
I think,
And I would-
I'm
Go
sorry.
ahead. No, go ahead, Terry.
We encounter this all the time in home care. They're going along, everything's going well, we come in with caregivers, but then things start happening. Maybe they start wandering or wanting to leave the house. So that can't be managed at home.
No.
Or they're falling a lot, or if they're, living individually, they're not taking their medication, or they show signs. We have one lady now who's really on the brink. She's not doing her laundry. She refuses to bathe. She won't take her medication.
Weight loss.
Yeah.
No, nutrition is an issue.
Right. All those things we see. And then, we're saying, call these guys, because we don't want the crisis either. But we encounter this all the time. And those are some of the big warning signs that we see.
And the in-home care agencies that we work with would be willing to call us like as soon as it needs to happen. They're not going to wait until something terrible happens, like they fall down a flight of stairs 3 times, and that's like this piece of wood, that's plastic. But we don't want to wait for that. We want to help them before it gets to that point.
Right.
And I would say if you're the caregiver, caretaker, your health has to be number one.
Yep.
Because if your health deteriorates, you can't take care of your person anymore. So when you start, you're having just as many doctor's appointments, you're not going to your doctor's appointments because you can't leave them alone, or you can't add one more appointment on your schedule. Those are all warning signs. And especially if you have, children or adult children, you have to stop and think about that. Do I want them to end up with 2 crises on their hands because I can no longer take care of my spouse or my person or my mom? So your health has to be number one.
It's the old caregiver creed. Before you can take care of anyone else, you got to take care of yourself.
And I think that a lot of in the Hope Dementia support groups, you're talking about that. What are you doing to take care of yourself? And what are other people doing so that if you don't have ideas, you can kind of borrow.
If the caregiver can't get any sleep because they're worried that their loved one's gonna fall, or they have to be up with them, or they wake them up all the time, that's a downward
Oh,
spiral.
for sure.
too.
And then you end up with someone who can get even more angry at the person they're taking care of, and then unintentionally do things like not bathe them because they're burnt out. They don't think about it, or not give them the right meds because they themselves forgot to take their own meds. I mean, it's sad. Like, I will help those people, obviously, but we'd rather help you before it gets to that.
I hear all the time, I should have done this sooner.
Yeah.
I can't ever name a time where I should have waited longer.
Nope.
Never
Not
heard
once.
it.
Are there new things on the horizon? New plans of how to house?
I feel like there always is. Like for real, like
Like
Yeah, I
beautiful
feel like-
spaces where they can roam and it's
Like
It's
the
2
dementia
acres
village.
and-
It's different,
I
yeah.
know what I would like to see is like the adult day center where we're here. I would like to see a night center for people
Yes.
who have sundowners and who are awake, where their loved ones can drop them off at night. They can be up all night and do
Sleepover.
activities. They go home and they sleep and you can do your housework and you can do, I would like to see that. So if anyone out there is listening. you've got
See
any
the-
ideas-
New nonprofit.
Yeah.
Well, in Europe, they
But-
have dementia villages where they actually can, you know, they have shops and they have things that are simulate a normal city village, but they're safe within the area. And that's,
Mhm,
there are a couple in the United States. I know there's one in Ohio.
mhm.
And we would love to have that here.
Oh, gosh, yes.
My boss Joey and I talk about it all the time. We wish there was a dementia village for people.
Joey needs to get on that.
Yeah, okay.
Excited about
I don't-
this right
but
here.
Joey's
That's
on the
what
We
line,
can
probably.
volunteer
He probably is
Joey?
watching. He's probably gonna, oh, great, thanks, Sarah.
So I just looked up residential dementia villages.
Mhm.
And in bold type, it says residential dementia villages don't exist in the United States quite yet.
Oh.
But similar programs are in place that could lead the way for residential development soon. And an example is San Francisco's Town Square, which is a retro town.
Oh,
So it's
Wow.
designed to be the Main Street USA of 53 to 61.
I would say like senior care in general, as a whole, is getting better as people are paying more attention to it. It kind of feels like dementia was like a bad word for a long time for folks, because I think the main reason is you feel like that could be me one day, and so I don't want to deal with that. So like people with dementia have been kind of like the forgotten segment of society. So now that people are actually understanding it, the medical community is coming around and understanding more. Like memory care used to be a very clinical environment where there's like handrails everywhere that were very clear, very sterile, because that's what people thought was needed. And now they're becoming more homey and like more like something they're familiar with. So I feel like when you said like, is it changing? Is there anything on the horizon? Probably. What it is, I couldn't tell you.
I think too, we're seeing a trend of people being more willing to move sooner,
Yes.
which I think can change what senior care and communities look like. You know, I think for a long time, people were just really digging in their heels and being, I'm staying home,
I'm
I'm
gonna die
staying
at home,"
home,
yeah.
you know, and then it's like, once you have to move, there's only a certain type of community that's gonna be able to manage your care needs. So some of the dementia villages wouldn't really benefit you at that point, but.
Right, it's about familiarity at that point. And so like that's like what you were saying is like when someone moves earlier, oftentimes they become familiar with like the decor, the chair, you name it, like that flower vase that's always there, the picture on the wall. They become associated with it. So that way, as dementia progresses, they would recognize those same things and not freak out because it's all new, it's all different now. So that's why we try and move earlier than later. But whenever the family's ready is the primary thing.
and something I'd like to mention is a program called Dementia Friends. It came from the UK. And I'm a trainer for it, but and Hope Dementia Support and Area Agency on Aging are sponsoring it. And it's educating the grassroots people. This is a non-clinical, this is for everybody. This is for the barber or the trash man or whoever. And it's to educate the whole community. And I think that's really important because as they move, people with dementia and their caregivers move in the community, people are afraid of dementia. They're scared. Why are they acting like that?
Yeah.
Or, you know, I don't know what to do with you. I got my hair cut and there was a lady in the chair who obviously had dementia. I didn't need to be told she had it. And she was having a meltdown and the person cutting her hair didn't know what to do. She just stood back like this, like, oh my God, oh my God. And that just escalated things more. So, you know, had she been educated and understood about dementia, that would have made a huge difference. And there's a huge program in the UK and Japan and around the world. United States, we're getting on the bus. Washington State, we have a program through University of Washington. So, so I just wanted to plug that program. Maybe Lynn can put some information on Dementia Friends for us.
Sure.
Thank
Sure.
you.
So we're getting close to the end here. I do have, I want to know, how is it that these placement agencies get paid? How do you make a living?
We get paid by the communities we place at. So we're free services to families. That being said, we make sure it's the right fit. It doesn't matter what the rate is that we place at the community. It doesn't matter to us. We want to make sure that it's a good fit.
One of the things that I like to tell families, this is worked into their marketing and advertising budget, our fees. So you're paying for it, whether you utilize us or not, that's part of their, you know, expenses. So you might as well use us and get your money's worth.
Because we will tell you if some place is not great, and they wouldn't.
Yeah.
It's their job to sell their place. Our job is to make sure it's the right fit.
And we have contracts with pretty much everyone in town. And so the good news is that working with a local agent, you can be assured that we are looking at the right match and not just, oh, I'm only going to show you these three because that's who pay me.
Yeah.
So there are other national companies that don't, no, I'm saying, I'm saying local versus national, there's a difference.
So
We
perhaps I
we know
would
what's
wanna
going
use
on.
a place
Wait,
called-
that's a 4-letter word.
And you know, we tour with you, and that's really important because that means we're in these buildings on the regular.
We see
And so we're
things.
seeing
Yeah.
things, we're seeing changes for the good and the bad. And there are times where I know we all have, where we've maybe worked with a community before and we saw changes and we're like, that doesn't sit right with us. We're gonna step back. And we'll be honest with
Yep.
families about it.
Yep.
And, you know, I think we're all, you know, good about, like, I know there's one building in town, their policy is they don't work with placement agents, but they're a great building. And I tell families all the time, especially if that's the area, you need to go check this one out.
Yep.
We'll still make the phone call for you. We'll still do all that because our goal is that you're gonna be happy with where you go.
Thanks for that. That's true. Yes.
And you do adult family homes, assisted livings, memory care, all of the above,
Yep. Independent living.
Independent living.
and independent living.
And then we also refer to in-home care.
Mhm.
So we're just a big resource.
We know
We're like
lots
a
of
walking,
things.
talking
So
book.
you need an elder law, you need a moving company,
Right.
you need a notary, mobile notary. You know, there's just a whole list of things that people need, and we've collected them all. You know,
And
you
if we
who's out
don't
there.
know, we'll call each other.
Yep.
That's right.
Or if we're struggling with one
Mhm.
and, you know, we just can't find the right fit, we'll call each other.
That's right. We brainstorm together, and that's also the beauty of being in a small community and knowing who your competitors are, but your co-competitors. You know, we're here to help seniors.
Are there more than the 6 of you
Mhm.
in Clark County?
Not a whole lot more, but there's,
Yep, there are. The
If
answer is
someone
yes.
were to
That's
do
true.
research to figure out, like, I have a situation in Lewiston, the mother who's 83 isn't bathing and she has diabetes and she's not taking care of herself. And it's a big burden on the kids.
Hmm.
And she doesn't want it, she wants to stay in the home. So they're looking for resources to help her stay there with the idea that maybe they'll say, this really isn't working for you, we need to place you somewhere else and it'll be easier for her to hear from a professional. So how does a person go about finding you guys?
come to these meetings.
Well, but this is like in Lewiston.
Yeah, so-
Like on the internet, I'm
Right.
thinking, since they don't have telephone books anymore.
Yeah, so
Yellow
we,
Pages.
First Choice has an office in Spokane, which is right a stone's throw away, but my understanding is there's not a lot shaken in Idaho in terms of senior care or living. But Google is a great thing, right? Thank
Right,
goodness for Google.
We have a-
So,
We have a Boise office.
do you?
Yep.
Okay, well, then check.
And they work in the Spokane area
Yeah,
too.
yeah.
So
The
So,
other thing is that there are area agencies on aging and
Yep.
disabilities in every state, in every
in every county.
For sure, yeah.
Okay.
I would start there,
Uh-huh.
because you don't want to get in the, we won't name hole. That's the downside to Google, is you can end
Yeah.
up on,
That's true. You
On
can get
accident.
in a
Yeah.
rabbit hole on accident.
They'll give
So
you.
Google area agencies on aging for that area.
Yep.
Okay,
Good, good.
okay, great, thanks.
Can you guys, as placement services, can you like direct people to go, like, say someone comes in and they want you, they need to place their person. But they're thinking, well, I want an adult family home. But you're thinking, oh, memory care would be much better for this person. Do you guys get to help sway them?
Yeah, I oftentimes jokingly say, but accurately, my job's like 90% counseling and 10% placement.
Okay.
I'm not a counselor,
You can
but
give
it's about listening and hearing what
You
they're
can
saying.
give advice as to
And
which
yeah,
one
I
might
can
be better
clearly
for them.
tell, and I'm sure you guys can as well, when someone is like, oh, I want this adult family home, but you know, my husband, he goes out every night at 9 p.m. and goes for like a 3-hour walk. An adult family home may not be a good fit.
So
I'm not
when
gonna
you-
just say that. I'll
Well,
be
you
gentle.
might, you might.
Yeah.
Yeah, you might.
Well,
But when we're having that conversation, is, well, let me share some of my experiences if it's
Right.
okay with you. In this type of a situation, that may not be. However, thank you for your question, Lori, because I have, when families are not sure which way, and it could go both ways, either
Okay.
way could be okay, then I might recommend, let's go look at a memory care community and let's go look at one adult family home so you can kind of get a taste. Because I would never want to somebody to pay that fee for an adult family home assessment if that's not really sure
Right.
what they are wanting to do. So I say, let's just go take a little dip and then we'll talk again and then we'll head out again. So I think that that's reasonable to help educate people about what is it, that they're ruling in or out. If they don't know, you have to help them.
I just know oftentimes in our groups, people kind of get a set picture of where they want their person to be. And that doesn't necessarily mean that's the right situation for that person. And it goes half and half. Some will say, oh, only adult homes. And some will say, oh, no, it must be memory care.
It's a matter of building
So then
trust.
it's like, how do you kind of get them to figure out what works best?
Well, I've had a case recently where, when the gal called me, she said she was adamant, she did not want an adult family home. She doesn't think her mom will do well in a small environment. And, but she kept saying memory care. And, we went and we toured, but even more, I knew even from the intake, but I knew she needed to go look at these memory cares to see what that looked like. And really what her mom needs right now is assisted living. She's still really independent, but in her mind, because mom has dementia, I need memory care because that's where you go when you have dementia. And then when she was able to see the residents in the memory care, she's like, oh, this is not at all where my mom is at right now. And that was fine. We went and we looked at a couple. So she also knew, it wasn't just that particular building. Now we're going to look at assisted living this week. But that's one of the cases where in this case, she's possibly going to end up moving twice at some point.
Yeah.
And so we've had that conversation, but
Yeah.
she'll thrive in assisted living right now and then no possibly need memory care down the road. And maybe not.
Yeah,
It
and
doesn't
on,
always work.
on that note, we've seen many people that have dementia that have lived successfully in assisted living.
Mhm.
As long as they are not exit seeking or they get lost and can't come back or they're combative. I mean, those are the two things that we're asking about, that they can do fine. So it just really depends.
Yeah, and a large part of this too is like, if we do find assisted living to be the best fit, if there's a financial piece where like they have 2 years of private pay, we would recommend a community that has assisted living and a sister property that has memory care. So should the need arise that they need memory care, they're already in a place where they've been paying. So those dollars count to where they're going next. So we want to make sure that it's a good fit, long-term, and that doesn't always work out because maybe that memory care we thought would be good, but 5 years down the line.
Or sometimes someone doesn't exit seek and then they move in there and 3 months later, they're walking to the store. and
Right.
Fred Meyer's calling and saying, I think this one belongs to you. I mean, it happens.
Does happen. Well, I think that we are pretty close to the end here. Thank you all so much.
Sure.
I learn something every time, which I appreciate. And I will send out information for all of your organizations and for the organizations of our people who are ill. And it's really good they didn't come.
Yes, thank you. Thank you for staying home. Yeah.
Sit calls have taken on a whole different meaning. I was like, I'm glad you stayed home. Thanks for telling me.
So, I do want everyone to know that next month, on the 27th of September, we will have a dementia educator by the name of Joyce Beal, who will be providing a talk called, okay, it is called, I just wrote it down, so. It's not a good thing that I can't remember. Anyway, what it is helping your caregiver help you. When you have a caregiver in your home, you know, sometimes people will not want caregivers in their home. You know, we don't want strangers in our house. We don't want them touching our things, et cetera, et cetera. But it's clearly necessary, and Joyce gives some really good ideas as to how to integrate that person into your life. And she's really fun.
She's good.
So everyone will enjoy her a lot. There's a good final question.
I know.
Maybe it'll be for
Calling my
charity.
name.
Go one more year.
Oh, one more. If you could leave people with a final word of wisdom, what would it be?
One single word or?
Oh, geez, John.
I would say, don't wait to look. It doesn't mean you have to make a decision. But knowledge is power. So, and all that will do is just give you knowledge of what's out there.
And we'll support that too. If you tell us, I'm
Yes.
just wanting to see, there's no pressure here. It doesn't help anybody for us to be,
No.
you know, come on, do it. It's not helpful.
And we'll be the buffer between the community. So
Yes.
if you say, I don't want to be called, I'm literally just looking, we will tell them that you call us and
will be
we
your
will stay in
person.
We don't even
contact.
give your
So-
phone number to them
I
usually.
say,
I give them
"I'll
my
be your
phone number.
lady," and then I will keep them away. They have to come through me, and I like that. That's kind of fun.
We do appreciate what the marketers do though. Like
Yes,
Yeah.
absolutely. Thank you. It's no
one in the
problem.
room.
Oh,
But,
awesome.
but also you call me first.
I think for me, it would be that there is help available.
Yeah.
You know, even sometimes people call us and maybe they aren't a fit for home care. We give them resources. We may give the Medicaid agency, we may give these folks
Yeah.
numbers. But there's help available. The caregiver doesn't have to stay home and struggle alone in isolation. We definitely tell them about Hope Dementia Support, the groups and the Alzheimer's Association as well.
And I think I would add to that too. Like my thing is you're not alone. Most people that are in this room or on this call know they're not. But it's okay to share that with other people too. It's like you're not alone. Like it, because when you're caregiving for someone with dementia, it feels oftentimes like you're on an island. But there's people. You just have to reach out.
Yep, we're here to help.
My final word of wisdom, based on communicating with a whole lot of people who are caring for loved ones with dementia, is what I hear a lot is, oh, they're not ready for that. So they may very well be, and it doesn't hurt to check it out.
Okay.
And that's it.
That's it.
So
That's
thank
a
you
wrap.
all very
Thank
much.
you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks for coming.
Good job, everybody.
You're welcome. Thank you.